Hello, this is Mark Wildman of Wildman Athletica here today with the great Summer Huntington of FlowShala in Bellingham, Washington, and we are going to ask her some questions today. Hello, Summer. How are you today?
Doing pretty well. Pretty pumped.
We have been talking about doing some live training events for the last 3 years. Obviously, in the last 2 years, that got put on hold for reasons of global economics and everything else. We're going to do a seminar at the FlowShala, Summer's lovely studio. I'm going to be teaching some aspects. Summer is going to be teaching some aspects. Summer, will you run us through the ideas of what we want to try to shove into how long is this? 16 hour, 18 hours? 3 days.
Sure.
So we're going to do Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, so we're holding our first Wildman and Summer immersion, which is an in-person only event. And I'll be hosting it here at FlowShala, and I can do a quick screen share to kind of show you the ins and outs, because sometimes it helps to have a little visual.
Yeah, show us. So like, do you have the website pulled up or something?
Yeah, here it is. So
there it is.
If you go to flowshala.com/workshops, you'll find our poster here, and then you'll find a little brief overview of what we're doing. You can apply for continuing education credits. However, you don't need to. This is open to the public, but sometimes people like to get extra credit when they come and train with us, so we can give that to you if needed. And then here we have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So here's the schedule. On Friday, we'll be doing a 6 to 9 p.m. mobility and mace mechanics with some intro to staff. And then both Saturday and Sunday, we'll be running 2 7-hour days with Steel Mace Vinyasa, heavy club, staff fighting drills, somatics, and mobility.
So general idea. Summer, will you tell us a little bit about your version of yoga? Because there are many versions of yoga in the world, and oftentimes people don't understand what yoga means or how it is implemented. So tell us about what you do.
So I founded a system called the Steel Mace Vinyasa. This is a 7-pound steel mace. So I really specialize in helping athletes understand how to move their body in 6 degrees of freedom. And it's a non-denominational form of yoga. It's actually just movement under load. I founded a system called Kettlebell yoga in 2011. And so Steel Mace Vinyasa is the next phase of loaded asana conditioning. It's different from other types of yoga in that we're not just strictly focusing on the breath and the asana. We're actually doing cross training for yoga asana so that our bodies understand where to stand in space, understand proprioception a bit better. And there's this fierceness that comes with wielding a mace within an asana. So for example, our warrior one position, we're actually embodying the warrior archetype and protecting ourselves from something that might be flying at our head, such as a staff. So we're integrating elements of martial arts into yoga. So it can feel like a really nice entry point for people that maybe don't have a strong yoga practice. This can be a really great place to start.
So the way I think about this is the word asana is in martial arts, it would be stance, right? Or other types of things would be pose. So when she's saying asana, what she really means is we're putting people into useful athletic positions that people have defined as useful for as long as human history has been around. And then we are integrating that idea with steel mace. I love this idea. Summer is my favorite yoga instructor, and technically almost all other yoga instructors drive me bonkers at this point. But what is your background? You have a master's, am I correct?
Yeah, I have a master's in kinesiology, but I definitely did not learn this stuff in graduate school. I learned this by coming to seminars, coming to in-person seminars to learn about clubs and to learn about mace, traveling and getting out of my comfort zone and being in an environment, a concentrated environment. So yes, I have a master's in kinesiology. A lot of the leverage principles apply. A lot of the kinesiology principles apply. I just started teaching Steel Mace Vinyasa seminars where one of my demo models is wearing like a muscle suit, and then we highlight what muscles are being activated, which muscles are like turned on in stability, which ones are concentric, which ones are eccentric. So I'm pretty fascinated with how the body moves and just making the most ideal, optimized human that they can, perform. They can do their outdoor activities. They can, get up without getting hurt, like just functional humans. It's kind of my jam.
I really like this idea that you have of Steel Mace Vinyasa because it lies between a bunch of other things. It lies between, say, pure yoga, which is more about breath, relaxation, and yoking the mind, and martial arts. So in martial arts, you have something that's way over on the super hardcore side, which is like pure sparring-based martial arts, BJJ, bare knuckle boxing. And then it kind of backwards there from there as you add rules to it. When you add rules to martial arts, you contain it into containers. And as you change the rules, you change the postures of any specific martial art. Many people practice martial arts very hardcore when they are young. And then as they age, they like to practice something that allows them to work on ideas without getting punched in the face all the time. I think Steel Mace Vinyasa lies right next to something like Shaolin Kung Fu in design. Shaolin is a martial art that I practiced for many years, but it also has what some would call asana, what I call structure or form. And they lie right next to each other as being ways that you can practice the postures and the athletic positions required of martial arts without getting hit every day, because you simply can no longer recover from that, or you don't have enough time to recover from that, etc. So I always think of Steel Mace Vinyasa as like a super science nerd, time limited version of the basic tantues of Shaolin martial arts. We're going to get super nerdy at this seminar because that's what we like to do. We like to get super nerdy about things. The people who are the best in the world at any sport or activity are those who really study it, understand it, and maybe even push it beyond what's useful for normal people so that we can figure out where in the middle the useful part of everything lies. Summer, what equipment do you have available for us to use for this seminar at FlowShala?
All the equipment will be provided. We have room for up to 25 people. We'd like a cozy group between 10 and 25, but we'll see what happens and who snatches up their early bird pricing. We have wooden staff. These are essentially dowels that I got from a home improvement store, and we wrap them in tape so that they prevent them from being broken. We have lots of mace. I have a whole arsenal of mace behind the camera here. We have 5 pound, 7 pound, 10 pound, 15, 20, and I think we even have 25-pound mace as well. We have heavy clubs. We have clubs, smaller clubs for kettlebell yoga. We have up to 45-pound clubs. And then we also have some kettlebells as well. So you don't need to bring anything. We have mats. We have big zebra mats as well. They're very soft, like martial arts style mats that people usually set up around the room. And we have a very large training facility here. This is basically like a downtown studio space. It's 2,400 square feet. We've got views of the downtown waterfront project, and it's just a very spacious place to swing. You're not going to hit anything. You can strike, all sorts of stuff.
I've trained in the studio. I love it. The ceiling is actually high enough you can do something like staff training. And even people who don't know about staff aren't going to break a whole lot of stuff. If it's going to be something minor, if something actually gets broken, we'll just keep everybody away from the windows. It's a great studio. I love the mats that you have because that allows us to do half kneeling drills, change our base of support, and then by changing our base of support and integrating it with upper body drills, we can do a whole separate thing for neurological training for most people. Will you tell us our dates on this again? I got to make sure I have all my travel plans set.
This is happening on April 28th, which is a Friday. We've got a 3-hour segment on Friday from 6 p.m. is kind of like our opening circle time, opening ceremony, whatever you want to call it. That's when we open, 6 to 9 p.m. We'll be doing some Steel Mace Vinyasa. We'll be doing some mobility, and then we'll be introducing some staff on that day as well, because we want to give the most exposure to the staff drills in smaller circuits, which I'm sure Mark will go into a little bit. Then we have Saturday and Sunday, the 29th and the 30th. So it's the 28th through Friday through Sunday. Come a little bit early. We recommend just showing up a little early and getting to know the area, getting settled in so that you can be grounded by the time you show up.
Yeah, what is that? There's a Korean place right over by you. They're right next to FlowShala, one of my favorite places to eat. I love that place. It's so good.
So yeah, there's lots of food downtown. We'll be doing a big group dinner on Saturday night. So there'll be some time to kind of interact and hang out and get to know each other outside of just the training environment, which will be super fun.
I want to jump back to something she said about staff fighting drills being broken up to multiple points during the day. I think that this is really key to how we're laying this whole thing out. Introduction on the first night, we would like to introduce everybody to staff right away. Everybody will instantly figure out they have no idea what they're doing. That is the point. The point is that the way that we're coaching staff is not the way that it's normally coached at all. We are doing it in a neurologically progressive way to work on specific brain attributes: OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, and act. And then we are going to break up staff drills throughout both Saturday and Sunday. At the beginning of Saturday, before lunch on Saturday, after lunch on Saturday, at the end of the day on Saturday, same thing on Sunday. Our goal is to figure out how to shove in a minimum of 7 small sections of training for that, but we're thinking we might be able to get in at least 9, if not maybe a couple more. The secret to training something like that is we're using it in conjunction with the other training. We're using it to ramp everybody's intensity way up, get their brain firing on all cylinders, and we approach that as a series of movement drills, standing, walking forward, walking back, different types of strikes, different types of defenses, different types of counters, and all those drills stack up on top of each other. After we finish a section of that training, usually people start to break down around the 20-minute mark if they're not used to it. We might be able to push it to 30 minutes depending on how many people are there and how we're rotating people, but then moving directly into Summer's excellent coaching on breathing and restoring calm to the system, which makes it very similar to classic Asian martial arts in that respect, focusing on breathing, focusing on meditation, moving towards yoga, then doing teaching breakdown sections where we will talk about how the concepts of yoga and mace and staff all integrate in with one another, and then we can start the whole cycle over again. It's going to move through phases over and over and over again, as that is a neurological learning trick. It's the way that you train actors in Hollywood. It's the way that you train people to ride horses on the side of a mountain. It's the way that you would train people for gunfighting. It's all the same concepts. We're just applying it to what we really want to talk about because it's fun and learning is important.
Well, I'd love to share a bit about what I plan on teaching so that people can come prepared.
There it is.
So Mark and I will definitely both emphasizing the elements of mace that most people have a hard time with, which are 360s and mills and drop swings. So there'll be a big emphasis on shoulder mechanics, and I consider myself an expert in mobility, so I'll be giving you guys lots of tips and tricks for opening up the shoulders so that you can restore proper range of motion and so that reaching the mace up and overhead isn't as difficult for you. So I know you're going to learn a ton about shoulder mechanics. And then I specialize too in open hip conditioning. So when you train under load in open hip postures, such as like the Warrior Two stance or Skandasana, for example, you train under load with the steel mace, it's going to open up your hips so that you can get more power in all the things that you do. So even if you don't identify as a yogi, like think of this as kind of like an extra tool in your back pocket to know how to cross train for yoga and cross train for mobility, so you can have more power, more agility, more coordination, precision, and control.
I would like to point out that what she's talking about, warrior pose, is also called mountain pose in martial arts. It is one of the key structures in every martial art on the planet throughout all of history. You will find this movement pattern in yoga. You will find it in all Asian martial arts. You will find it in all European weapons arts from, say, historical European martial arts. Getting a better understanding of the fundamental series of warrior pose with steel mace will absolutely improve every sport that I could possibly think of. I can't think of anything that it would not help you benefit, whether it be quality of life or athletics. There's no way around it. This is why I love Summer's coaching, is because it is focused on what I consider to be the absolutely best pieces of coaching that you can do for yoga. So I'm excited to learn. I always learn from Summer. And obviously I need to keep learning from Summer for at least another 10 years before I really understand what she's saying.
Hey, I have one more thing that I wanted to say. I put a similar video up on my YouTube, so if you want to geek out with us, just check out each other's YouTube channels. But I'm going to be providing access, 30-day access to our Train Neuro Load course, which is basically staff training and machete training from Mark. It's a two-hour workshops, and then my Steel Mace Vinyasa and Kettlebell yoga workshop. So anybody that signs up and does the pre-sale early registration, you get access to that so that you can have some content to train with prior to coming. We're going to be offering the early bird pricing from now until Thursday, and then that's like the early pre-sale, and then it will go up to second tier pricing after Thursday. So if you're watching this later on and you're like, oh my God, I missed the pre-sale, don't worry, there's still a discounted pricing up to about 10 days before the event. And the link will probably be shared in the comment in the description too. Will they be training with the staffs before getting there?
Well, I think they should definitely put their hands on it, and I think that they should definitely watch the information. The more times you see the information, the more likely you are to retain any of it. The thing that most people are shocked with, even very strong people or people who work with their hands for a living, is the shock load of doing even 10 minutes of staff training. because people are not used to that type of shock load in the modern world, weapon against weapon. If your hand is in the wrong spot, if you're not pushing your hand all the way, if you're not gripping correctly, if your wrist is in the wrong spot, you will know it immediately. So the more you hit something with a stick before you show up, the better it would turn out for you. Trained some actors in London for a big movie, and we had them, for 10 minutes every day as part of their warm-up, striking heavy bags with staffs and a couple of other things just to get them to learn to line up behind something, because everybody's wrist was going bad. And when then people try to get into doing stunts or something for movies and something goes wrong, their wrist is in the wrong spot, people get hurt very quickly. So learning to hit something and learning to block something is its own series of neurological skills that everybody thinks that they are going to be good at ahead of time, in which they are not, because it is a specific neurological adaptation. Seminar that you have is one that came from one of Summer's events that she did back in several years ago before the pandemic. That was a fun one because I had come in and I taught staff one day for 2 hours to like several hundred people in a field. Very fun, extremely hot. I should not have worn black, but I'd been in London. And then the next day, I think we did machetes. We actually had hundreds of people doing machetes for the first time ever in a small space. That one was fun. And I had flown in from London and like come straight from the airport and walked straight on stage and did it. And then I flew straight back to London to get back on set. That was a fun series of trips. Summer always gets me into some entertaining ideas. So whenever Summer has an idea, I tend to listen because they're never bad. I miss training people in person. It's fun. It's fun to train people, to talk to people, and to do these things over and over and over again. All right, Summer, thank you for joining us today. And we shall see you very, very soon in just a couple of weeks. And we will continue to work on our design strategy and do all types of meetings and be super nerds.
Thanks so much, Mark, for having me on. Appreciate it. And stoked to see you here at the end of April. Can't wait.